Hey folks, glad you could join us on another episode of Business Redefined. As always, this is your weekly, most comprehensive look at the world of business, finance, and economics. We want to talk about a subject which is quite emotive in this country, right at the heart of the conversations we normally have, and that is the subject of mortgages and financing towards home ownership. And who better place to have this conversation than the director in charge of mortgages at KCB, that is Caroline Wanjeri. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Julians.
Karibu sana.
Asante sana.
Let's begin by painting some macro perspective here. The last conversations we had with the banking sector players was credit risk was a bit elevated, and one of the areas which took a hit on that was on the mortgages side. Looking at 2025 so far, we are about at the half-year period. How is it looking?
Julians, I can tell you it's looking better. And allow me to take you back how our housing landscape has evolved. The last time we ever had very organized development was the days of Buruburu, days of Kayole, when we had the organized housing development. But I think in the last few years, having started back in 1952 through savings and loan, what we're calling SNL, we've seen the market evolve very, very much. One, there is better access to credit, there is cheaper access, there's more flexibility. And just to speak for the last 3 years, a huge development in terms of more Kenyans being able to own homes. And part of it has got definitely to do with the introduction of KMRC, Kenya Mortgage Refinance Company, where KCB is the second largest shareholder outside of government of Kenya. And what that has done is that we have seen fixed rates coming into the market. We have seen long tenures, up to 25 years. We have seen banks go back to their cooking pot and become more innovative. Right now, we have 105% financing, meaning many of the barriers that existed have been removed. So I wouldn't be surprised, Julian, that in the next 3 years, we've been talking of 3.8% of our GDP. Chances are that we could easily go to the 5% mark. It's not that big, but looking at how we have stagnated on the 3%, it is something big. We've, for the longest, talked about 30,000 mortgages
Correct.
For the market, which is really embarrassing. But I think with the intervention, we are up to hit the 60K mark, just doubling that within a period of 2.5 years. So that alone is very, very encouraging and very, very improving for the economy. I
see. And you've touched on something which is very important here, and that is how we push mortgages further downstream for the ordinary Kenyan to be able to access it. We've spoken about the interventions around KMRC, longer tenors, fair pricing, fixed pricing for that matter. Majority of Kenyans still feel as though the mortgage is a product curated for a certain segment of the market. Walk us through some of the myths, if I could call them, that you think dominate the market and how you are playing in that space of addressing them.
Okay, so first, Julian, if you look at our demographics as a country, the bulk of the income earners are within the middle, what you'd call the middle and lower. So you have the high being very, very low. So if you look at the past, when we had rates even up to 20%, in fact, even recently, 18% for market price. Yes. Last year, for any ordinary Kenyan earning 150,000, it's almost impossible for them to qualify, because if you apply their living expenses and then put in mortgage, it's almost impossible. So the single-digit rate has a very, very big impact. The 9%, we are charging from as low as 9%. That has a very big impact in terms of bringing more within that bracket of lower and level.
Yeah.
So one, the rate has gone down, almost halved. So it almost like more than halves the repayment. The second thing is that the longer tenor. Yep. So it actually means for the same rent that you are paying, you actually pay your mortgage and move into a house. Then the third very fundamental thing is the need for deposit. A lot of people did not have money to raise 10%, 20%. Most banks require, before you can get a house loan, yes, a home loan, to put in a down deposit of 10%, 20%. But we've opened up that. We have 105% financing. And what it means is that you can get money for the full house. On top of that, the 5% goes to cover closing costs. Things like stamp duty, things like valuation fees, things like legal fees. So it actually means, Julian, you can actually move with your staff and just move in and start paying your mortgage repayments after 30 days. So that has had a very big impact. So the repayments have become lower. If we look at the average loan size, even from the last CBK report, that has actually been going down. Because what was happening, people could only certain people could qualify for the house. And that's how you saw the Kilimani Kileleshwa having so many units coming up within a very, very fast time, because only people at a certain level could qualify for a mortgage. But now we have people who can qualify for 3 million, 5 million. So if you look at the landscape of the development, there are a lot of more developers who are putting up units for 3.5 million, even looking lower to 2.5 million. And there are a lot of Kenyans now who are able to buy units within that range. Still a lot of work to be done, because when you look at that segment, and I would call it from 2.5 all the way up to 6 million, still not very many developers are playing in that place. But that's where the affordability, because when you talk about affordable housing, it's about affordability based on my level of income. It's got nothing to do with the price and all that. But that, if you look at the range of 2.5 to 6 million, then the biggest demographic in our country, and these are people who are earning, 150,000, between 70 to 150,000, majority can be able to qualify there within that price range.
Caroline, as you speak about that market segment, the 2.5 thereabout, and why we need to still push it further down to that point, many Kenyans who normally reach out to me ask this question: why can't we have products which are tailored around incremental financing? I'll give you an example. The way majority of our parents ended up owning homes was to take a SACCO loan. You do the first floor progressively. Does the banking ecosystem have allowance for such a kind of a pathway? Because the bulk of Kenyans are in that segment.
So two things. The way we have coined our product actually allows you to draw out equity over the number of years. So for example, today, if you take a 25-year mortgage, within your 10th year, the portion that you have paid becomes your equity. And we have built-in flexibility, what we call our Mortgage Plus. We've built in flexibility for you to be able to draw that equity away. And you can use that money to do, your own business. You can do it for medical. You can use it for education. But you raise a valid point, because then you're asking about incremental housing, where I can do this, I can do the roof and then come in, which is the model that has been adopted by most Kenyans. I go take a SACCO loan, 2 years. The only disadvantage that it takes you too long to do the house. So what we have done is to allow those Kenyans that want to build. But we avail the financing, so that then we put in a period and tell you, because the resources are there, because that's our work as financial institutions. The full resources are there. You build, but what we do, we don't give you the money in one chunk. So we give you in stages. And what does that do? It allows us to come and inspect and confirm that you've actually injected the money that we gave you. So we'll do it in about 3 to 4 installments as we come and check your progress. So you do your roofing, you do your finishes, and we come and check, and then we do the final disbursements. You'll be surprised, by the way, Julians, 50% of Kenyans want to build their own space. They actually don't want to buy. They want to be able to design and say, this is the kind of a kitchen I want, these are the number of bedrooms I want. So actually, as I said, our portfolio in KCB, 50% is construction, 50% is outright purchase. And what does that do? What we've done, unlike the tradition where somebody has been taking either personal loans or has been taking loans from the SACCO and taking many years, the way our parents did, they took almost 10 years to be able to complete the house. What we've done is to avail the resources, but then we don't give you everything upfront. So we give you in stages. And this allows us to come and inspect so that we can confirm you've done your foundation, you've done your roofing, you've done your finishes, you've done your gates, and the house is ready before we do the final disbursement. So it allows us to move that journey together. The only difference is that we're moving together, and then you don't have to wait for 3 years to finish your house. We put in a limit, and we've estimated a period of 6 months is adequate for you to finish a house. If it's of a bigger scale, then maximum 9 months you should be able to complete the house. But you raise a very valid point, because when you go down lower to the segment, and this I talk of people earning 50,000 and below, they may not be able to borrow the bullet, even if it's the 2 million. And probably they want to just put up something decent that they can be able to live in. So there's an opportunity in terms of product innovation to be able to identify a product that allows that person at that lower level to be able to build in those stages. And I can tell you we are on it.
Wonderful.
We are on it.
You've mentioned the issue of 105% financing. I'm sure many Kenyans would be curious as to what is the eligibility requirement for us to be able to access this?
So one of the things we've done, Julian, is one, our agenda is to drive financial inclusion. So it was very important. And if you check why we've struggled as a country to just boast off 30,000 mortgages, is part of it, we had actually, most of the financial institutions had ignored the informal sector, what you call the MSMEs. So what we've done is to create products that are attractive to the MSMEs as well. And we do recognize the fact that MSMEs may not be very organized in the sense that they may not have financial records. They may not keep even audited books of accounts. So one of the things we've done is to work backwards and see how we can work with the cash flow that we are able to see or we are able to view from the, from the shell records that they maintain and develop products around that. And we've seen a lot of more people coming up to take up mortgages. So the 105% financing, for you to qualify, you just need to show you have income that is coming in and it's coming in consistently. We will work backwards to be able to know what you qualify for. We've even gone further, and our female-led and made enterprises, what we call FLAME. We did a survey with the World Bank, and one of the things we saw is that women are actually very good payers. So one of the things we've done, unlike men, unlike men. So one of the things we've done is to remove, because then we realized the problem of that we are coming from, the traditional problem that we are coming from is a lot of titles are not necessarily in the names of the lady. If I'm married, that title is in the name of my husband. So as a way of encouraging more women to start getting into this space and to get titling, we did our FLAME proposition out of a study that we did with the World Bank. And we've seen more women coming in to borrow. And initially, we don't require you to have a security. So as a woman entrepreneur, you can borrow up to 10 million unsecured. And from there now, we are able to build you through to the journey of home ownership. Because a woman will just come and tell you, I'm running a business. I actually don't have any security to give you. And, I don't even know how to start. So we are able to start from the business and bring them forward. Over and above that is to also recognize that our youth population is quite high. And these are the informal that are really, really, really down at the form of formation. So through our foundation, I'm sure you've heard about Tujiajiri. Again, we have another incubator in there where we incubate young entrepreneurs. We provide business development services. We work with TVETs across the country to provide short-term training. But in there, start building entrepreneurship skills. Because, our education system has taught our kids to go to school to get a job. Whereas there's a whole opportunity with the manufacturing industry coming up for our young people to start being job creators, to start being entrepreneurs. So we start that journey and incubate them and grow them that way. As we grow through that journey, we also start talking about home ownership and the rest of the products within the bank as we formalize them.
Caroline, as you speak about all these fantastic things that you're doing as KCB from the mortgage perspective, I'm sure the larger question here is, how do you navigate credit risk? And I'm asking that because over the recent past, you see all these auctions happening. And of course, the real estate market has gone through a bit of a turbulent phase. How do you manage credit risk?
So for us, and I'll tell you, Julian, we participate both on the supply side and on the demand side. And this, we do finance projects in the same way that we do finance the mortgage buyers, what you call the end users. And as you rightly put, the market has been a bit turbulent. And one of the things that we did, especially, as COVID hit, a lot of our customers were affected. And one of the things that we did was to encourage our customers to come on board. We did a lot of moratoriums. We did a lot of restructures to accommodate the customers. Most of them have been able to come out of the post-COVID events and the impact that COVID had. Not all of them survived.
Yeah.
So being one of the things that we've also become very intentional is ensuring that our developers are also investing in the right areas. So that then we're not having an over concentration where you all find yourself building in Kileleshwa or Kilimani.
Yeah.
We are encouraging with the devolution. There's a lot of money that has moved into the counties. So you'll find that even our bus tour, we normally have our property bus tours. You'll find that we've taken them down to the counties. Last week we were in Nakuru doing our property bus tour because there's uptick there. The centers are coming with more money going down to the counties. There's a lot of more facilities going to the counties. We now have level 5 hospitals. We have some of the big universities going down to the counties. So we are also doing the same for housing because all these people will require to be housed. So how do we integrate and move the concentration of housing within Nairobi? Because if you look at concentration of housing, what you'd call decent housing, it was mostly concentrated in Nairobi and maybe Mombasa, a bit of it. So we are starting to move it down and encouraging financing of projects that are being done out of Nairobi as well as part of building that sustainability.
Wonderful. If I'm a Kenyan who's pursuing first-time home ownership, walk me through, give me some hand-holding into what I should think about. If I'm looking for a financier, why is KCB the choice financier here?
So for a first-time home buyer, we are the best stop shop. We start you right from, because the first thing you'll be grappling with is where are the houses, what are the prices? And that's how we have our property center. We have our property center at Kencom. And one of the things we do is to take you through that journey of this is where the properties are, and that's how we do our property bus tours. We'll take Nairobi, we'll take a route we'll take you through the properties in Nairobi, the properties in Kitengela. We'll have another route going into Thika, just to help you start comparing prices and to start seeing, is this an area I'd want to live? Is this an area I want to take my children to school if I ever get any? So we start you right from there. But on top of that, I said we have developed very creative products. You don't need a deposit. We have the 105% financing. For a first-time home buyer, I don't expect you to want to buy a house that's valued more than 10.5 million. Unless really your income is, and that would be nice, if your income is really, really high. So anybody would qualify because that's the maximum limit we put in there.
Yeah.
But again, it's also that deliberate effort of ensuring that then the people who are qualifying are the middle and the lower income people. So just to make sure that that house is not valued at more than 15 million, because the maximum you can get is 10.5 within the 105% financing offering. On top of that, with the 9%, it's fixed. So you don't need to get worried about things changing in between. You are guaranteed, that rate will not change. I keep saying, and I like joking, it doesn't matter how long you rent a space, even if you've been there for 30 years, Julians. The day you move out, you cannot tell the landlord to give you 1 bedroom as a return. The beauty about a mortgage is the bit that you have paid belongs to you. You can actually walk to your financial institution. You can walk back to KCB and say, come on, I paid for 5 years. The money I've paid for 5 years, that's my house. I own my house to the extent of the payments that I've made. Can I benefit out of that? Then the other thing that we've done for a first-time home buyer to make it easier is the longer tenure. I think we have one of the longest in the market, 25 years. Yeah. So it means even if you're a Gen Z that has just, got a job, instead of going to buy that car, there's an opportunity that you can actually be able to own your space instead of, starting to rent and start living decently. Yeah. So, and the fact that the rate is fixed gives you that certainty that, it's not going to change. You have a guarantee. Rent actually is not fixed.
Yeah.
Every year every year, you get a rent increase. But with this, you're getting a fixed amount. If it's 30,000 shillings, you're going to pay 30,000 shillings for the next 25 years. And it allows you to do other financial planning. Now, let me speak about home ownership as a tool to wealth creation, because many people don't look at it that way. Remember, I told you, if you've taken a 25-year mortgage, within your 10th year, you can actually draw that equity. that you have made out of that house, you're still living in that house.
True.
You can actually remove that money and put it in other investment instruments. So it's a plus and plus. So there's a way you can actually use your home ownership journey initially, because anyway you have to pay rent, but eventually as you move on, use it as a source of creating your other lines of wealth.
And it gives you money you can use in other asset classes. Exactly. So tell me something. Many Kenyans ask me, if I walk into a bank, KCB for this case, and I want the KMRC enabled mortgages, KMRC doesn't not lend directly to me. It lends to KCB with them. How do I begin to tell KCB that I want this cheaper facility and not yours? Never mind that KCB, of course, would want to get the highest rate here.
So first, just looking at the time we started this journey, 52 years back, when you were savings and loan, one of the things, in fact, embedded within our strategy, the 3-year strategy of transforming today together, is to ensure that we drive financial inclusion, we drive affordability. So if you actually look at even our campaigns, anything that we're speaking about, we are actually talking about affordability and making sure that every Kenyan can be housed. Why do we say this? Because it's a basic need. It's almost, when you look at it in terms of the hierarchy of needs, shelter is at the bottom, together with food and clothing. Yeah. So it's a right. It's actually a human right. It's embedded within our constitution as a human right that everyone should be housed decently. Not, I will say decently. I will not say, and decency comes with, I have got to be able to afford it. So for us, when you walk in, that's the first option we look at, because we want to have as many homeowners. Being an institution that has been here for 129 years, for us, our legacy is going to be seen by how many people did we enable to live decently. And home ownership is part of the journey. Allow me to just comment on what you've just mentioned about our relationship with KMRC. KMRC lends to the primary mortgage lender, and then we on lend. But of course, how KMRC is one of the most successful PPPs that have been done in this country, because it is a public-private partnership model. And in there, you have the government putting its investment, you have banks coming in to put in the investment, you have microfinance institutions coming in to put in the investment. So we have National Treasury that has put in 25%. KCB is the second largest investor at 20%, but there are other financial banks that have come in, and other circles. And I can tell you, initially when KMRC was starting, it was almost begging financial institutions to come on table.
Board.
And I can tell you, Julians, right now, they're almost fighting and jostling to all get in. Yeah. So it is a model that is working, and it shows you the power of what can happen when private and public come together, and where you allow everybody to do what they are best at. Because KMRC does what it's best at, which is fundraising to address the liquidity mismatch, so that I'm not using short-term deposits to
fund long-term. Exactly.
And at the same time, I also get the funding at a cheaper rate, and it means I'm able to pass it on to the own lenders. And then, because I am trained in offering mortgages, then they allow me to offer the mortgages and carry the risks that come with it. So it's a win-win, and I can tell you that's why I'm certain in the next 3 years, we've been talking about 30,000 mortgages. Trust me, that report, just continue, follow it very closely, it's going to go to 60K, doubling within a period of...
We'll certainly hold you on that, Caroline. As we close our conversation, how do you see the real estate market evolving? And as it evolves, how do you see the mortgage offering from players like yourselves then evolving to meet the needs?
So there are two things that are happening within the real estate industry. One, more of master developments. We are beginning to realize that land is not a resource that's there forever. It's actually a limited resource. It's a resource that we need to conserve. So more and more master developed developments where there's maximum utilization of the land space, where there's maximum provision of all the services that are needed. So you will see the tattoo cities coming up, where you have schools within there, you have hospitals within
business
there,
complex.
you have a business complex within there, you have an industrial park within there, so that the people that are running the manufacturing industry can still be located within there, without the concentration that we had where all resources were basically within CBD. So there are a lot of people today, if you're within Tattoo City, you don't need to come to town. It can take you even a month before you come to town. So there's a lot of more master development. And it's the journey towards, if you think about SDG 13, about buildings, SDG 13 and 11, ensuring that we are building sustainable cities, that becomes very critical. And the impact that has on climate, very, very, very critical. So there's a lot more of that. There's a lot more of adoption of green technology. A lot of people are becoming more aware of what I can do and the impact that has on the environment. We had for a very long time people encroaching the riverbeds. We had people encroaching even areas around the airport, and that is changing. We have a lot of residents coming up and fighting against having noise within the space of residential building. So there's a lot of evolving around how we organize ourselves, but a lot of work to be done. If we are to talk about sustainable urbanization, there's a lot of to be done even from a planning perspective, so that then we ensure that as the counties approve the plans that are being submitted to them, then they put those considerations into place. We are starting as a financial institution to start looking where our money is going. So we are starting to tick the ESG box, and we are asking, environmentally, is it right? Socially, is it ticking the box? From a governance perspective, is it ticking the box? So we are starting to go to that detail. Is your project EDGE certified? How are you utilizing the limited resources like water? Is there a recycling element within the building? How is the energy in the building? Remember, real estate is one of the biggest emitters into the environment. So how are you utilizing energy utilization within a building space? How is that being done? So we are starting slowly because we know we can drive that. The developments that we finance, we are starting to ask and holding our developers to be accountable and walking that journey with them, so that if you have not ticked those boxes, then from design, we help you tick that box. The other, you asked about what is changing within the real estate. There's a lot of movement to ensure that we align with our demographic. So you'll find most of the developments that are being done are within the space of the middle and the low income earners. And part of it is because that's where the bulk is. Today, if you look at ourselves as a country, majority of our people are young people. So there's, again, another focus, even people focusing on institutional housing. How is student accommodation being done?
It's really
Students
growing.
are becoming, for a very long time, we didn't have to think about that because universities could do it. But now developers are having to think through how is student accommodation being done. And it has to be decent. It has to offer the student that decency, even as they live in there, to be able to study and come out as, as a responsible citizen. So you will see a lot of developers are looking at that space. So student accommodation is an area that is driving a lot of conversation. The affordable housing space to cover our demographic of the middle income and low income is an area that is also picking up very, very, very well. And the area of green and sustainability, those conversations are beginning to happen, and it's quite encouraging to see that all the professionals within the built industry, the developers are also actually willing to sit on the table to ensure that the buildings that we're putting up are sustainable for the future. If I look at a city like Mumbai, for example, for one time they had a lot of projects just coming up. We have reached a point where we need to ask ourselves, before something comes up, we must ask ourselves, in 25 years, is this going to stand the test of time? So from the point of financing, even as a financier, we are asking ourselves that. So if you come to us, we ask you, do you think this is sustainable? Given that land is limited, given that the population is growing at a faster rate than we had envisioned, given the rural to urban migration, is it really sustainable, for example, for you to come and propose you want to do a house in Nairobi where you're taking 5 acres, and you will start seeing even areas like Karen changing the way they are doing it, gated communities that are still, giving you the space, but at the same time recognizing the fact that land is not there forever. Developers looking at green spaces that they create within the development. When you talk about live, work, and play, providing environments where kids can cycle safely, people can work within the space comfortably. So all that, so things like Wi-Fi, which would never have been a big deal.
Now it's front and center.
It's one of the things that we check, have you given provision for the house to have? Because internet has become lower. Now we need to change the hierarchy of needs and have food, shelter, clothing, then internet. Yeah.
On that point of sustainability, my very last question, and very briefly here, is that clearly green financing is a big thing, and especially in the real estate sector. There's a lot of liquidity sloshing around from DFIs. Is it on the table for you as an option to capital raise and disperse more?
Oh yes, definitely. It is on the table. We are having discussions with a lot of partners, a lot of DFIs. There's an opportunity, Julian, to move this market to the next level. We've just moved into the secondary market, but there's a bigger, there are more innovative tools. When you talk of asset tokenization, we've hardly even started. I think this is the time that even from a regulator's point of view, we've started, building guidelines on how products like asset tokenization can be rolled out. But I can tell you, it's just, I don't even think the year will end. Soon we'll be rolling out innovative products that will enable, because not everybody can be able to own the 2 million house. They might just want to own a fraction of it. Sure. So those products become real. We have started seeing, real D rates and I rates coming up very, very well. I think we've had 2 successful ones. So there are a lot of investors who are also willing to invest and just get a fraction of it. And I think for us is, how do we create more public awareness? How do we make regulation support these initiatives that are coming up, so that we can have this as more investment, as a class of assets that Kenyans can invest in? We've traditionally relied on real estate, the brick and mortar, but there are very many other, sophisticated financial products that can enable money move freely within the sector.
We have been having a conversation with Caroline Wanjeru, in charge of mortgage business at KCB Bank, covering real estate evolution in the mortgage space, innovative financing that is coming up, including longer tenors and smaller interest rates in terms of single-digit payments, to enable us democratize mortgage financing and push this formal financial inclusion right to the bottom of the economic pyramid. Keep it business defined for all this and more details on matters financing.